Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm the Senior Technician and Warranty Specialist over here at VoltBike. Today we're going to do a little video about winterization, how to keep your bike happy during the snowy months. We're going to start by showcasing our new Yukon here. This is new for 2021. I promised you guys a little reveal, and here it is. It's a step-through version of the Yukon. As you can see, it's got some extra reinforcement gusseting around the head tube and down tube, as well as in the seat tube and everything. Other than that, it's identical to the Yukon Limited, just a little easier to get on and off of. So Canada, we get a lot of snow biking that happens in the winter. It's exactly what the fat bike was born and bred to do. Nowadays with electrics, you can kind of just go without having to worry about too much resistance from super deep snow, and you can go out and have a ball. That being said, there are a lot of extra care precautions that you can take to keep your bike happy, well maintained. Make sure you don't get stuck somewhere out in the cold. So in this video, we're gonna go over a little bit what to do as far as preparations and what to expect with battery capacity and all that sort of thing. So first things first, you've been riding your bike all summer, all fall, through the rain and all that kind of stuff. It's been a little while since you've been to your local bike shop or even had a look at it. Start your winter off with a good, decent tune-up. If you have to visit your local bike shop to do so, go ahead and do that. I'm sure they're happy for the business this time of year. If you're mechanically inclined and like to do this kind of thing yourself, it's a good time just to give your bike a real good once-over. So with that, I'll first things first, just give my bike a good overall inspection, starting from the front and working my way back. Take a look, make sure your stem bolts are still all tight. All of your connectors are connected. Take a look at your tread life of your tire. Have they gotten bald from riding it on the pavement all summer? You can also inspect the condition of your brake pads very easily. In the front, you can just look straight down and actually see the pad material that is left. Ideally, once that pad material gets below about 0.1 of a millimeter, it's time to replace your pads. You certainly don't want to be able to not stop while you're out there. Of course, ice will make that more challenging. Following that, you can just work your way down through the bike. Make sure it's fairly clean of debris, including your magnetic sensor here. You've got a 12-point magnet here, and certain rocks do have high metal contents and will stick to it. So you can be getting either a fluctuation of power or any of that kind of stuff from contaminants stuck to that. So make sure that's all nice and clean. Working your way back, check your chain, make sure it's free of grime. We're going to go over oiling that in a minute, but we'll just touch around to the back here as far as inspection of your rear pads. So you can clearly see going down into the pad from the back, your whole entire brake surface there. Again, we want to see those replaced within 0.1 of a millimeter to the metal backing surface. Either that or you can damage your rotors and not have a good day. Okay, so we'll go back around to the front of the bike. Done your overall inspection. You can get a local bike shop to measure your chain to see how much it is stretched. Typically, a bicycle chain will last anywhere from 1,500 to 3,500 kilometers, depending on weight of the rider and what sort of conditions. Any bike shop worth its salt will have a chain measuring device. It simply goes into the chain and then sinks in. So this one's got a 50 and a 75% wear point. As you can see, this chain is brand new, so the tool doesn't sink in there. If the chain has stretched, it will drop down in there to a varying degree, revealing how much wear is actually on the chain. Once you've reached 100% or an actual 1% chain length overall, it'll start to skip on these lower back gears. And you go to put some weight into the bike and you'll skip forward and crash. So good rule of thumb is just make sure your drivetrain's in good shape for the winter. If you are replacing the chain, it's a rule of thumb usually just to do the freewheel at the same time. They wear together, so happy drivetrain, happy bikes. So what to expect as far as battery capacity expectations in the cold. So lithium is a bit of a fickle material. It doesn't like temperatures above 27 and below zero, particularly for storage. If you're going to be riding your bike in the winter, which a lot of people do, the battery itself will be generating its own heat while it's in use. So it does have a little bit of its own sort of self-preservation there, but you will notice that your capacity will drop up to 30% below zero. Once we get to about minus 30, if you're still riding in those weathers, you'll start to see an even further drop in capacity. And ideally below 30 isn't the greatest for these things. You will see long-term damage to your cells if you're doing this on an extended basis. I speak from experience on that one. My cold winter riding battery is now my backup battery just because it doesn't have the life that it used to. So be prepared for that extra wear and tear should you be using this for a primary source of transportation. So you'll see 30% of the capacity as far as your range below zero. So maybe carry a secondary pack if you're going out all day because you will be able to shrink your riding scope from that. As far as storage is concerned, if you're done riding the bike and you're in a warm place, remove the battery and bring it inside. The entire bike obviously would like to be in a warmer temperature as well too, especially when it comes to moisture within cable housings and all that sort of stuff. The electronics themselves are pressure sealed with controller, the cadence sensor, the display, the wiring harness, all that sort of stuff. Obviously don't submerge them, but it is okay if they do get wet. But once they get wet, they like to dry, so that's always a nice thing to do. Winter riding, of course, always brings salt with it. A lot of the roads are salted in order to keep the traction up when the ice comes around. So it's also a very good rule of thumb just to wipe down any salt after an excessive ride. That will cause your bolts and all that kind of stuff. While your stainless steel hardware, you'll start to see surface corrosion and all those kinds of things, and it will also dramatically shorten the life of your drivetrain. This is a fairly sensitive moving object, and it just likes to be clean and dry. So with that being said, we'll move on to the chain lubrication part of the segment. There's a few different lubrications you can use. Go to a bike store, get proper bicycle lubricant. It's not that much more expensive and it's purpose built for the job. If you're riding in heavy slush and snow, you might want something a little thicker, like a Phil's Tenacious oil. Downside to having an oil that sticks very much is things will stick to it as well too, so your drivetrain will be continually dirty using something like that. We're in Vancouver here where it rains a lot. Tri-Flow and Extreme Purple are pretty much sort of the industry standards here. Both of these are fantastic. I highly recommend those. So these can also be used on rubber seals without deteriorating them or any of that sort of thing. So that's why we use them. It's just a good overall friendly lube. So first things first, we're going to make sure it's clean. So if your chain has been over oiled and all that sort of stuff, you'll probably have a lot of chunks of stuff on it. So grab a rag you're only going to be using for the chain for the duration of the rag. Otherwise, it's just going to get the rest of your bike dirty. And just thoroughly wipe off everything that's on there before you start to lubricate it, just to give the oil a bit of a fighting chance. So from there, don't go too crazy with it. You can use degreasers and all that sort of thing on it, but I find it's actually overkill if you're riding a lot. You just want to make sure it's clean and lubricated. So from here, I'll grab my lubrication with the straw and just basically put it on top of the chain and start easing it out and just rotate backwards. And you can see the little drops of oil are sort of making its way onto the chain. I do this on top of the freewheeler cassette, so if there is any excess, it just spills onto here, so it's no big deal. Again, don't be shy about using a little bit too much because we're actually going to wipe it off in a minute. So the purpose of the oil is just to lube the pins on the inside of the chain. Anything that's over and above is considered excess and wasteful. So you're going to be taking your cloth and wiping it off 10 spots, the whole chain on the rag. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So basically what this is going to do is just take all the excess stuff on. You want to be able to run your finger across it and not see any lubrication come across. But the oil's done its job. It's inside those pins. Those are nice and lubricated. You can do a few other things to your bike as far as cleanliness. I find a dry rag just works the best just to wipe off any sort of salt or slush or any of that kind of stuff. Some people use an anti-static spray like Bike Lust, and that will actually stop some of the snow from sticking for a bit. It's a fairly temporary solution, but it is a product that people use. So that should cover your drivetrain lubrication there. From here, we're going to go to what to expect with the rest of the electronics in the extreme cold. I've seen it personally where, below minus 25, minus 30, you'll start to get a little bit of a blotchier readout on your display. This is sort of the cold side of things. In the summertime, you sometimes see a water vapor on the inside of the screen. Both of those are not actually harmful to the display. That's just them operating outside their manufacturer's specifications. Usually once they warm up, they do restore. Just like any plastic, they're a lot more brittle in the extreme cold. So, things like your display mounts and all that sort of stuff might be a little bit more susceptible to cracking under impact. So do watch your crashing. You're gonna snap some of the plastic components on this a little bit faster than you normally would. Okay, so that just about covers everything. We're going to go over a couple of extra little bonus ones here. A lot of people that are riding these bikes are putting studded tires on them. This particular bike has a lot of chain and seat stay clearance as well as fork stay clearance for up to a 4.8 inch tire. You put some studs in there and you can go playing on the ice and everything. Again, do be cautious, wear your helmet, dress up in Gore-Tex, you should have no problems having a good time. Storage applies the same as a regular bike. Bring the battery inside. If it's longer than a month where you're not going to be riding it, try to keep the battery at about 80%. It's recommended you then cycle the battery every 3 months. So basically, if it's at 85%, you have ridden in 3 months, drain it, charge it back up, and you should be good to go. Keep your bike clean. Don't let it sit too long with the salt on it after your snowy rides, and it should last a lot longer for you. So my name is Ryan. Hope those tips were helpful for you, and happy winter riding.